Good Sunday morning, everybody. Welcome back to North Central Weather Center. In today's video, we'll be talking about storm chances increasing, especially on the outer periphery of a building heat wave through the week, with temperatures soaring well into the 90s and into the triple digits across the north central states. And looking here, this is yesterday's storm reports. On Saturday, we had several reports of wind damage and hail damage out there from portions of the upper Midwest down into the Central Plains. 73 wind reports. We had 62 hail reports across the United States, with 7 of those being significant, and 135 storm reports. And many of those were across the north central states from yesterday on Saturday, July 22nd. And looking at the overall weather pattern today and what we have here, the big ridge and heat dome is across the western United States. The northeastern periphery of that will sneak into our western regions across the Dakotas, Nebraska, down into Kansas today, with a little bit of some cooler northwesterly flow still persisting across the Great Lakes region this afternoon. So as such, with the cooler northwest flow across the Great Lakes, I do expect more of the upper 70s and low 80s across Michigan into the Ohio Valley, with some lower 80s and comfortable humidity once again today. But with the northeastern periphery of the ridge building across our western regions through the Dakotas, Nebraska, down into Kansas, temperatures there will be well into the 90s. I'm expecting middle and upper 90s across those areas, and perhaps near 100 degrees this afternoon near the Rapid City, South Dakota region. And looking at storm chances through the day today on your Sunday, we have a marginal risk for severe weather up near the Grand Forks region. This is into northeastern portions of North Dakota into northwestern Minnesota, and another marginal risk in our southernmost hometowns across Wichita down into Springfield, Missouri, into the Ozarks region. So that will be something to keep an eye on through the day today. Going through this morning, not too much happening out there, maybe a stray shower or storm, but very quiet across the north central states. Same thing as we go into this afternoon. We may start to bubble up a couple areas of thunderstorms into the eastern Dakotas or over here into Michigan as we go through the afternoon. Mainly some small hail and 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts with any of the storms that do pop up today in those areas. And then as we go into tonight, we're just watching out for some showers and storms trying to develop. The coverage will be very isolated. So if a stronger or severe thunderstorm does start to pop up, it'll be up here near the Grand Forks region or southward here toward Wichita to Springfield, Missouri. Those will be areas we'll be watching for stronger weather as we go into this evening and tonight. Otherwise, very sporadic total rainfall accumulation. We're just seeing around a tenth of an inch here in many of the areas that do see the rain. The heaviest could be up here into northern Minnesota. We could be seeing up to a quarter of an inch of rain if those thunderstorms do materialize as we go into tonight and into your Monday morning time frame. But otherwise, very sporadic, very light rainfall across the north central states going through your Monday morning. And then early this week, starting around Monday, we have that ridge getting to a 600 decameters down here into portions of southern Colorado and northern New Mexico. And that's the center of the ridge. The northeastern periphery of that will be building into the upper Midwest early this week and then taking over our north central states by the middle of the week on Wednesday. You see that red line up here gets into the upper Great Lakes and our northern plains regions. That's where we start to see more of the 90s building in toward the middle of the week, and then that continues to persist as we get into later this week as well. So as such, temperatures will be surging into the 90s across our north central states, across portions of Minnesota, Iowa, into Illinois on Monday, still holding on to the 80s further east in our easternmost regions into Wisconsin, portions there of Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio, and even down into Kentucky, still into the 80s, but we're into the 90s and even triple digits down here. The hottest temperatures Monday will be into Kansas and our southernmost regions, getting into that 100 to 105 range Fahrenheit as we get into Monday. Then on Wednesday, we build that 90-degree line all the way up to the international border. We're up to 98 degrees there in Minneapolis, 102 here up into portions of Pierre, South Dakota. And then we're also talking about 96 there in Des Moines, 100 in Lincoln, Nebraska, nearing 100 there as we go into Omaha and into the 100s down in our southernmost regions into Kansas on Wednesday. And then on Friday, we start to see the northern periphery of that ridge flatten out a little bit. So we see more of the cooler weather, relatively speaking, upper 80s to low 90s up here into the upper Midwest, with the hottest conditions trending further south into Kansas, Missouri, and southern Illinois, with temperatures into the upper 90s to low 100s there on Friday, July 28th. And looking at the orientation of the jet stream, we have to look at storm trends through the week. We have a shortwave trough moving into the Pacific Northwest early this week, which will translate downstream into our north central states by the time we get into the middle of the week. We could have an isolated cluster or two of thunderstorms moving through the Missouri Valley as we go into Monday. Other than that, we're seeing generally quiet conditions across the board as we go into your early week time frame. Then by the time we get into Wednesday, that shortwave is on the verge of moving into the Dakotas and Minnesota here and starting to flatten out the northern periphery of that ridge. And what that'll do is cause more opportunities for isolated clusters of showers and storms, mainly up here into the Dakotas and northwest Minnesota. We could have some marginally severe storms with those as we go into Wednesday. And then as we go into Friday, we have that translating a little bit further downstream, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Minnesota as we go into late this week. More clusters of showers and storms. A couple of these storms could be strong to severe on Friday. We'll have to watch out for damaging winds, large hail, and a couple tornadoes with this, along with the locally heavy rainfall. So we'll be watching out for the placement of these as we go in toward later this week, as it is pretty uncertain of where the placement of these storm complexes will set up. Overall, though, into next weekend on the 29th and 30th of July, I know it's crazy to say it's already the last weekend of July next weekend. And that red line is all the way up into South Dakota, southern Minnesota, Wisconsin, into lower Michigan here. That is the northern periphery of the ridge of high pressure. And look at the temperatures. Next Saturday, we're well into the 90s and triple digits still across portions of the Central Plains, the Midwest, into the Ohio Valley. The northern periphery, though, will provide some relief with 70s and 80s with some more cloud cover and storm complexes to the north on Saturday. That will continue into Sunday as that thermal gradient moves a little bit further to the south, but still very scorching 100 plus degree temperatures around the Ozarks region, the Illinois Valley, and west towards the Central Plains as we go into next Sunday on July 30th. And I am keeping an eye on a more robust shortwave that could be riding over the top, those ridge riders we talk about as we go in towards next weekend. This is a little far out. It's about 6 to 7 days, but we're watching here. The icon model is showing a storm complex moving through somewhere into the Midwest by Saturday. And the overall consensus is that it will be taking more of a southeasterly jog into the better instability and kind of riding that thermal gradient wherever it sets up by Saturday night. So it could be moving down towards portions of the Illinois Valley into the Ohio Valley as we go towards the middle of next weekend. And then by Sunday morning, if the storm complex continues, it will be pushing in toward portions of the southern Great Lakes regions. Now, again, there's a lot of uncertainty with whether or not the storm complex sets up or not. I just wanted to show you that one scenario could have a storm complex moving through either later in the week or into next weekend, and this would be a more potent round of severe weather and heavy rain. So that will be something I will be keeping an eye on as we go into next weekend. But the placement of that north-south here of the thermal gradient, where that sets up, is very uncertain right now. I will be keeping you up to date on that as we go further along. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel down below. We're quickly approaching 200 subscribers. I appreciate all the support on the channel. Press the thumbs up button if you enjoyed today's content, and I hope everybody has a great rest of their weekend.